first part, we will move very quickly and give the floor to our other speakers. And can you go to the other slide? So this is our agenda. We will learn more about Digi4Live and what kind of tools we are using and what is the concept and impact that we are planning to provide at the end of this project. Next slide. So just a short information about EFAP, because me and Ebba and Remark, we are working for EFAP. EFAP is the European Forum of Farm Animal Breeders, and we are also hosting the FabriTP technology platform. It is about farm animal breeding and reproduction, and it is a recognized technology platform by the European Commission. So we have the research institutes and academia and the EFAP members who are European animal breeding companies. Next slide, please. At EFAP, well, what we do is mostly about the representation of the sector, and we are also trying to improve the sustainable breeding standards through our code EFABAR, Code of Good Practice. We are trying to facilitate dialogue with other stakeholders and actors in the livestock sector, and we are also a knowledge provider in EU projects. And FabriTP is mostly working on the research and innovation agendas and on strengthening the connections between knowledge institutes and private sector, while we try to promote and support research and innovation in animal breeding. And below you can see all the projects that EFAB is involved in, especially on co-creation, knowledge exchange, and uptake of the results. Next slide, please. So some house rules before we start. Firstly, we will have an open discussion. You can raise your hand or write your questions in the Q&A box for the panelists. And we can also give you the floor if you would like to give feedback or comment. For any technical issues you're facing, you can write it either to chat box. And if you're not able to do that, you can send an email to projects@efap.info. And please note that this webinar is recorded and it will be shared on Digi4Live channels. So if you don't want it to be seen, please close your cameras. Next slide, please. So just a brief information on who's the target groups for Digi4Live. So we have 6 main target groups from farmers, processor, practitioners, to data and digital technology providers, of course, research institutes and experts on the topic. Of course, we target policymakers, public bodies and advisors and standardization bodies, since we are also aiming to provide policy recommendations. We also have agri-food digital innovation hubs and AKIS actors as a target group, and retailers, consumers, and NGOs that are the final end users. Next slide, please. So our co-creation approach has already started. We are approaching the end of the first year of the project. So we already finalized and coordinated until the mapping of actors and the case studies. And now we are starting to build up our thematic expert panels, which Jarko will inform you better. We also have links to other related research initiatives, and this is the first networking event, as you see, but the project will go on for another 3.5 years. Next slide, please. So as you can see, we finalized the initial phase for our co-creation strategy. So this webinar will mark the end of initial phase. So we will be moving to the core phase, where we actually interactively work with the experts in the field that could give input to our work. Next slide, please. So we just want to also announce that we will have a stakeholder event in Greece on 1st of February. This is an on-site event, and the topic is digital technologies and data-driven solution in the livestock sector. So if you are interested to join, please follow our channels, which you will see the links at the end of the webinar. And I give the floor to Alexandra now, my colleague from FSH.
Thank you, Charla, for the introduction. Now you're going to see the activities from Food Skill Hub. My colleague Dusan is going to present the first slide.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Dusan from FSH, and from FSH side, we have, as you can see, a lot of activities that we are implementing to maximize the impact and ensures the sustainability of the Digi4Live project through its work that will be a couple of years until it's finalized and even after that. So for our work, will be what we'll be doing is strategic and tailor-made dissemination and communication activities that will be ranging from active blog posts to videos and materials that anybody and everybody can access at any time during and after the project's conclusion, promoting Digi4Live solutions for livestock tracking, enhancing transparency across supply chain for lessons learned and best practices. So all the materials that we gather and finalize throughout the project duration will be open access and we will be available to everybody to utilize and use. Then creating synergies with relevant R&I initiatives, organize impactful networking events and workshops to enhance collaboration and visibility. Through this activity, we will be creating links with relevant European project industry partners and other clusters that can not just help us, help everybody create a more friendly and more sustainable European livestock sector, organizing impactful networking events where like that FAP and FSH did with this webinar where we can talk directly to stakeholders, to you, and find the best methods and ways that we can utilize this data and digital technology that Digi4Live will be utilizing throughout the project, and workshops to enhance collaboration and visibility. Again, we want to hear from you. What are the problems and how Digi4Live can find a solution? Okay, and for the last activity is developing strategies for scaling solutions across Europe, as well as ensure that the project solutions achieve lasting impact while scale adoption and integration into a broader system. This part is where Alexandra will be working on, and is to all of the technology, all of the data, all the information that we have gathered and utilized throughout the project. We want them to be adopted across Europe and to be part of the integrated system that will be Digi4Live. We can go on to the next slide. Okay, Alexandra, she will be now taking over.
Yes, thank you. So the question here is actually, why is this important for the people who are now participating in this interactive webinar? And we are going to answer the questions in the following slide. So if you can go to the next slide. So as already Dusan presented what overall the Digi4Live does, but also how FoodScale Hub contributes, the overall goal for us is to develop a collaboration and visibility for the project, and also to enhance the participatory activities and co-creation strategy that will allow stakeholders to actively shape digital solutions, enhance visibility, foster partnerships, and promote the widespread adoption of these innovative livestock practices. And secondly is active engagement and co-creation that will enable stakeholders to directly contribute to the development and refinement of solutions, ensuring that they are tailored to meet their needs and maximize the relevance and impact. And finally, as Dusan already highlighted, it's a sustainability and long-term benefits, where we're gonna focus. We have already started with development of sustainability and exploitation strategies, and also post-project strategies, in order to ensure that not only our partners but also stakeholders can be positioned for a long-term success with access to scalable, efficient, and transparent solutions that enhance competitiveness in livestock. You can see in the next slide how actually we do most of the activities. So we have external and also internal involvement of the stakeholders. We are present at different fairs, events. We also sign memorandums of understanding with sister projects, but also with the collaborative projects. And also we have internal workshops where we actually talk about potential pathways for post-project strategies. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Alexandra and Dushan. So next slide, please. So we have an icebreaker question. So if you didn't receive the invitation in the chat box up in the chat box, maybe you can check. Otherwise, you can just join from here with a QR code and then entering the number. So we have 3 questions. Yeah, some answers are already coming. Seems like we have more cattle. Okay, so well, this first question usually takes the longest time because people are adapting to the poll app. Nice. So lots of species are being represented here. Nice to see that. Mm, okay. I think we have already quite some answers. Now let's maybe move to the next question. Just so which stakeholder group do you think you belong to? It's an easier question with the answers. So just to know who is coming from which kind of background for all the participants to see who the audience is. Yes, so we have quite some research and academia representatives, but not limited to that. It's nice to see also other sectors, agri-food associations, NGOs, data collection, policymakers, commercial companies. Great. Maybe next slide now. This is the last question. So what is the level of the geography your company's working on? European, global, regional, national? Nice. We have different regions. Nice to see that. Well, welcome to all the other continental participants also. Okay. Then I give the floor to Jarko now for his brief introduction to the project. Jarkko.
Okay, thank you, Chala. So, welcome to this first Digi4Live webinar. So my name is Jarkko Niemi and I'm the coordinator of this project. So the official title of the project is Supporting the Potentials of Digital Data-Driven Solutions in Livestock Tracking. So the question that I would like to address is that what the project is about and what we are aiming at. And next slide, please. So what is Digi4Live in brief? Well, it's a Horizon Europe funded coordination and support action. And the purpose of the project is actually to help European livestock sector to benefit from digital technologies and data that is already being generated in the sector. And we are also willing to and intending to bring together different actors who are working around technologies and data. So we are using multi-actor approach, and we will also have 6 case studies which are then intended to facilitate the creation of concepts which can be used to further valorize and utilize data and, for instance, integrate and share data between different actors. And this project is coordinated by my institute called Natural Resources Institute Finland, also known as LUKE. And then altogether in the consortium, we have 16 partners, and you can see the logos of different partners in the screen. So we have 11 work packages, and then the project started at the start of this year, and it will last until mid-2028. And as I mentioned, it is funded by the European Union. And next slide, please. So why we are running this project? Well, there are several reasons. Basically, it is responding to certain challenges that have been identified, and these include especially that there is inadequate data harmonization, standardization, and interoperability, which is then making it difficult to utilize data as efficiently as it could be done. There is also deficiency of solutions for tracking and tracing animals for monitoring health and policy and welfare and environmental aspects. There are also different kinds of technologies that are available, but they are used in a limited manner. So there's a potential to increase the use of both technologies and cross use of data, repurposed use of data. Also, one important thing is that there's public and private data and public and private initiatives, but the synergies between these are not sufficiently exploited. And then also there's insufficient collaboration between different actors on a broad scale. So therefore, what we are aiming at and what we want to do in Digi4Live is that we want to support the creation of standards and harmonized regulations. So we want to support this process in different ways, and most especially by creating information and bringing people together. Also, the project will give evidence about the benefits and usability of data-driven solutions and new technologies, and it will also strengthen the collaboration between different actors in this sector. So that includes both livestock sector and then technology providers and everyone who is working around these data and digital technologies. So the project will also highlight how digital technologies can benefit administrative and policy processes. So for instance, one implication would be that by making better use of the digital and data technologies, we can reduce the administrative burden to farmers. And overall, everything will then contribute to better environmental performance, safer food, increased traceability and transparency of food production, and then also increasing animal health and welfare. And the next slide, please. The next slide. So the ultimate goal of Digi4Live is to increase the capacity of livestock sector in Europe, especially to benefit from data generating and digital technologies. And in order to do this, we will demonstrate how enhanced standardization and communication can benefit farmers, food sector, technology businesses, and also streamline public administration processes. And the key tools that are being used here are these 6 innovative concepts and case studies, which will be showcased later on. And then this will also aim to empower the European livestock industry to effectively utilize digital technologies and data. So these concepts, case studies, and then multi-actor approach will contribute to this. And then we are interested in involving different stakeholders and actors, including farmers, food businesses, technology companies, public administration, and some others as well, also academia. And the technologies and concepts that we will be addressing include, for instance, data spaces, different sensor technologies, artificial intelligence, and data governance frameworks that will help to develop reliable and synergetic data sharing and use. And the next slide, please. And next one. So we have several objectives in the project. And these include, for instance, that we are connecting the key public and private sector actors and initiatives and will aim to help to strengthen their collaboration around data. We also want, as a project, we also want to understand better what is the potential of database tracking solutions and digital technologies in the livestock sector, and what kind of effects there might be of regulatory, technical, and commercial environments on their use. As I already mentioned, we are also working on the harmonization and standardization and interoperability of data systems that are being used in the European livestock sector towards the single European market for data. We also want to deliver these concepts that have the high potential for exploiting data and the technologies and that can be also upscaled. And then we would also like to support the use of livestock sector companies and data sets and digital technologies for livestock tracking and tracing and other purposes. And then we also want to improve the monitoring and evaluation of agri-environmental, climate, and sustainable finance policies. And the next slide, please. So we will have 6 case studies which are used for these concepts, and these will be presented later on. So I will move to the next slide. So one important element that I would like to emphasize is that we are going to set up 4 thematic expert panels. And what this means is that that we will set up a group. We will invite people to join these thematic expert panels, and then we will organize events, for instance, meetings and workshops around certain specific topics, so that people can, on one hand, share their expertise and knowledge, and then on the other hand, this could create, for instance, support for standardization processes and data sharing. So on one hand, by identifying different challenges, and then on the other hand, by co-creating possible solutions. And these thematic experts panels will have like 4 broad topics. The first one is called data interoperability and standardization. The second one is called state-of-the-art digital tools and technologies. The third one is called societal, regulatory, and legal issues. And fourth one is called data sharing and exploitation. So please, if you are interested in being part of this process, go to our website and subscribe to these expert groups. And the next one. Regarding the project structure, we have 11 work packages. They are basically grouped under 4 themes. There's one on management and another one for dissemination, exploitation, and multi-actor engagement. And then the empirical work is carried out in 2 different lines of work packages. One of them deals with the case studies and concept development, and the other one focuses on evidence gathering and assessment of these technologies and concepts. And the next one, please. So some expected key results that we will be addressing, for instance, through these concepts and case studies include data automated life cycle assessment models for environmental impact assessments, data an inventory of livestock tracking solutions, and that is actually one of the first tasks that we have started and will be finished soon. Also, we will be working on data-driven welfare quality assessments. We will be working on a so-called smart labeling loop for data observations. We will be also working on possibilities to improve the use of data, to improve the use of traces system in the EU. We will be also working on data acquisition and exchange procedures to ensure data interoperability in different levels, and then also on digital tools for supporting policy monitoring, as well as based on different phases of work. We will be looking at we will be working on to develop policy recommendations and best practice guides, as well as we will be working on so-called digital passports to store and share relevant information throughout the life cycle of the animals. So all these will create solutions and different types of models, and then that will also contribute towards increased activity in the livestock tech sector and also towards more transparent food system. And the next one, please.
So we have a short question. If the participants can, if you haven't already entered the AHA slides, I just sent it from the chat box, the link. You can enter from there, and a new window opens, and then you can write your details and then respond. And once you open that window, please stay there because we will be having these kind of questions all through the webinar. So you don't have to enter your details each time. In the meantime, we already have some questions on the chat box, Jarko, but I think maybe when we are through with all the slides, some of these will be responded already.
Yes. Let's take the questions at the end.
Great. Some participants are still typing, but we need to move forward to the next question. Okay. So if you are interested to join one of our thematic expert panels, which one would it be? So that we can also share information with you when we start with our expert panels.
In the meantime, I can perhaps respond to a couple of questions. The project focuses both on research data and also private sector data. I think we will come to that a bit later. And then mostly we will be looking at this harmonization through these case studies and their domains. And yeah.
Yes, so an intervention from Jarko's dog, I think. So let's move to, thank you, Jarko. We will get back to you. Now I give the floor to Thomas for his presentation, and thank you for all the answers. Please keep your windows open for AHA slides.
Yes, thank you, Sagla. Good morning to everybody. I'm Thomas Barzanas. I'm professor in Agricultural University of Athens, and Digi4Live Agricultural University of Athens is coordinating the work package dealing with the so-called stock of evidence, tools, gap, and policy. Digi4Live, as Jarko initially presented in his presentation, is a coordination action. Meaning that we have an essential part of this project is to see what is out there in terms of projects, of tools, of technologies, of solutions, of data sets, and try to see how can better categorize this. Next slide, please. So, the overall objective of this work package is to synthesize existing policies, initiatives, data sets, and technologies for integration of data and data generating systems for being able to conclude their potential coverage. And this is a major task, a major aspect of this work package, not only to collect, categorize all the available information, but also to raise some conclusions about the potential coverage. So, four main actions in this work package. First of all, as it is usually the case in these coordination and support actions, is to create an inventory of existing datasets, data collection technologies and systems that assess information content in terms of quality and usability. Obviously, the inventory is not only to help the participants of the project and all other people that follow the project to see what happened in relation to digital technologies and solutions for animal tracking, but also to offer to all the communities, scientific communities, stakeholders, farmers, the industry, a simple and efficient way in order to track some available solutions and use how can they use them. Second main action, describe and analyze key standards, regulations and policy, the recent anticipated development and key barriers and enable factors arising from policy, regulations and standards. Here the keywords is the key barriers and enable factors for the different standard regulations and policy that enable in digital solutions and strategies in animal tracking. Third pillar is to identify data gaps and barriers to interoperability and the potential for leaking and repurposing existing data or initiatives through workshops and DICE. And last, to analyze methods of data generation and integration, including the barriers and enable factors. Next slide, please. So, we start with the first one, is the inventory. The inventory is an ongoing process. You will see that we have some first results. We have already built a draft of the inventory. Of course, the inventory is a continuous process, meaning that we will continue and enrich the content of the inventory till the end of the project, but at the end of this year, the inventory in a digital form will be ready. When we started to build the inventory, we started thinking some main categories that this inventory will have, and also some level categories for the inventory. And you can see here that our main categories were the industrial product and applications, data sets, and of course projects and initiatives. As level 1 subcategory related to the main category was 6 pillars you can see here: animal health and welfare, resilience and transparency, animal tracking, breeding environment, policy and administration. And for the level 2 subcategory, we have the different animal species, pigs, dairy, cattle, cows, sheep and goats. Next slide, please. The work of the inventory has started even from the kickoff of the project, meaning that we are working on this for at least 1 year, and as I mentioned previously, the inventory has already a lot of material. You can see here that so far we have recorded almost 250 industrial products, 14 applications, 20 datasets, and 40 projects and initiatives. As you correctly understand, it's an ongoing and continuous process, meaning that this inventory will continue enriched and new content will upload to this inventory. Only some indicative numbers for what we have recorded so far in order to see how the subcategories we have identified correspond to the main category. So for the animal species, cattle is the most dominant animal species, and this also reflects to your answer in the first question in the pool we have. If I'm not mistaken, cattle was the dominant animal species, and then pigs comes with 31%. Related to the other subcategory that we have the different actions of the project, animal health and welfare is by far the most, not say popular, but this category that we have the most, these four applications, these more pillars of the main categories, meaning products, applications, datasets, projects, and initiatives, meaning that in our first research that we have made, the majority of these technology solutions tools are focused on health and welfare of the animal. Next slide, please. As I already mentioned, the initial version is ready. Obviously, this is not a final version. It's a version that is a working version for the members of the Digi4Live, the consortium of the Digi4Live, in order to have a look and propose a modification to suggest some points that we wanted to reflect better. But the main content of this inventory looks similar to other inventory that you may have the chance to see in similar coordinator support actions, meaning that you can select from different categories of the four main categories. You can select the animal species that you're interested for example, the dairy cows. Then you can see that some different solutions from projects, from datasets, from applications, from services, and then you can go further in order, if you, for example, for a dairy cow, you can find industrial applications that fit with your interest. You can find more information about the company, website of the company, and also information that are related to these applications. Also some videos and also material will upload to this inventory gradually. The initial version, as you can see here in the site that it's provided here, is working, but of course, I mention again, it's not the final form. We have a timeline till the end of the year to have the final form of the inventory in the digital form. Next slide, please. Now, apart from the inventory that we collect and gather any available information related to digitalization of the animal tracking, we also wanted to see with the main stakeholders their opinion about, and the aspects of course, about different issues related to the topic of the Digi4Live project. So, for this purpose, we are doing 50 structured interview with stakeholders, and the main purpose of these interviews are to assess information, feedback, suggestions, also the views of the stakeholders in issues related to user requirements, maturity planning and implementation strategy, needs for standardization, conformance certification, data sharing and the legislation, associated costs, data and the strategy. In the Digi4Live project, we have case studies. The presentation of Matti Pastel that is following will present you these case studies. So the case studies is a very nice and excellent source in order to start these interviews, and a lot of these interviews are associated with our case studies, but of course we have perform other interviews with people, stakeholders mainly, that is outside for these case studies. 50 structured interviews are foreseen for the project. Till now, till yesterday, we have 42 interviews, meaning that we are very close to close the foreseen number of 50 interviews, because you understand that of course it's nice to gather, categorize all the available information for the project need, but speaking, discussing with the people that in practice implement this technology and see the views of the actions that you see here, it's very crucial in order to understand better the view, problems, barriers and gaps that we have in the implementation of this technology. Now, as I say, we have already performed 42 interviews. Some initial observation of these interviews are related to the hardware and software, major initial setup cost, Training and support of, again, the major operational cost. The people that we have interviewed from the industry are aware of data sharing legislation, but a little effect on the decision making this has to do. For standardization, the views are that it's mostly necessary security and support, and related to data and strategy is that the value creations for regular customers and opportunities also for new target groups. Next slide, please.
Here we have another poll question. And Thomas, afterwards, can you also go a little bit quicker so we don't use this time?
Yes. Thank you. I will.
We have 33 responses so far, 34. So maybe you can, still we will share the link to the poll afterwards, so you can still reply after the event as well. So let's move.
Okay, related to the gaps and the barriers in livestock tracking, a task that led by Luke, we make a desk research regarding gaps and barriers on standardization, cost, technical skills, data privacy, security, data quality, and interoperability. You see that standardization is come first, and this is also reflected to your view in the previous questions, because I think standardization has received the highest number of votes. And also, in order to gather all the information and present also to the scientific community, we present a scientific paper based on the results we have on this. Initial observations for the standardization, parameter definition, calibration, data collection. We have a lack of business model and limited knowledge on investment profitability related to the cost. For the technical skill, lack of data management and interpretation, low ability to maintain and operate, and adaptive to user interface and connectivity issues. For the data privacy and security, cyber security low is present, lack of regulatory framework instructions, and on data quality, we have received views on inconsistency in data collection and management practices. Next slide, please.
Another question?
Last one for this presentation.
Yes, but we will have further, so please keep your windows open. It will save us time for discussion especially. Thomas, does the responses match with your inputs from the interviews as well?
Yes.
Yes, the data privacy and security is.
And also the associated cost is a major issue.
Yes, major issue.
Years
That's
also.
true.
Yeah.
Let's hit 40 results and continue. 2 more? Yes.
Okay,
Great.
now we go to the regulatory and policy matters related to livestock tracking, a task that is led by our partner KU Leuven. Mainly task in this task is to review on current policy and regulations, the implementations and anticipated changes, to identify near future needs, expectations and requirements regarding data and data management by competent authorities, to identify the opportunities, blocking factors and pain points for data sharing for livestock trackings. Already the data sharing, the standardization and data quality is mentioned also to the feedback that we have in this webinar about our audience. And to assess the consequences of existing, for example, general data protection regulation and upcoming legislative initiatives, for example, Data Act, Artificial Intelligence Act, data sharing and harmonization, and legal provision concerning data sharing and integration. We consider this also a major task because it's related to regulatory and policy matters, because sometimes, and this is also has come out also from the interviews that we have made, some legislation and the policy matters delay or create, some fever to apply these technologies. Next slide, please. Last part of this work package is a method analysis and framework. Is a general task that comes to synthesize the three previous tasks that I have explained. So based on the feedback, the results that we have from the inventory, from the interviews, from the desk research that we made, from the analysis of the regulations and policy framework, we will propose a common framework for the understanding and analyzing of innovation solutions and data generation. We will propose a common methodology on how to assess the needs and grassroots level innovations of the main stakeholders in the field of digital and data-driven solutions. This synthesis of evidence for potential gaps, barriers, and areas of improvement, and a summary of results and evaluation on how data collected for a specific reason from different sources can be used for other purposes. Next slide, please. And I think this is the last slide. Some questions only to initiate some discussions at the end of the webinar in three main categories: tool and data sharing. What type of digital tools are you using or providing? Do you produce and share data relevant to livestock tracking? If yes, what kind of data? What's your opinion regarding data sharing? For the gaps and barriers, what are the most important gaps and barriers for the adoption of livestock tracking digital tools? What are the most important gaps and barriers for data sharing? And what measures would you like to propose to deal with these gaps and barriers? And from the regulations, what are the main data-related concerns, and how do the currently applicable or future policy and legal frameworks impact your decision making? That's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. And let's move to work package 3. Matti's presentation very quickly. Matti, I'm sorry, you have to be a little bit quick.
Yeah, okay. Hello. Hello all. It's nice to see a lot of familiar people in the list of participants. So I'm Matti Pastel from Luke. I'm leading the work package 3, dealing with the case study. So I think we can go to the first. So as Jarkko already introduced, we have these case studies as a tool to study the topics of the project. So we have 6 case studies, and each of one of these deals with the new digitalization concept or an existing concept that we try to advance. And these are not, contrary to many other digitalization projects, we are not really looking at making products or potential products. We are more exploring general concepts related to regulation and data sharing and so on. And the main point is that we should try to have a EU-wide upscaling potential for each of the case studies. So that has been a starting point of the planning. You can see a map of the case study, and each case study initially is working at least within 2 countries, and then we try to identify what's the potential, identify gaps and barriers and stakeholder needs for each of the case studies. So if we go to the next slide, and then the next one, this one, yeah, we have 2 copies, but this is the better quality. So you see the 6 ones we had the case study. So this is an overview, and then I will go into details, a little bit of details of each one. So we have animal health and welfare, resilience and transparency, animal tracking, animal breeding, and then environmental assessment and policy and administration as the application areas. And the key technologies here are data spaces, use of sensor data, use of AI, and then also this data governance and legislation, which are kind of cross-cutting of all of the case studies. And next slide. So in case study A, this generation of new data sets of animal health and welfare. So the problem here that we are looking at is that it's quite well known. You have a lot of data on animal welfare collected by different participants. And this case study, we try to see how these could actually be made available in a shared and harmonized way to have this data-driven assessment of animal welfare. And as this is mainly a research project, and we are looking for stakeholders who are interested in this one. So we have interviewed several participants. And of course, we are interested in additional parties who hold this data. So if there are some industrial partners in general or other research projects interested in any of the case studies, please be in touch with us. So here, anyway, the aim is to look at the data sets, identify from different sources, how to make that available, what would be kind of the business model of the data sharing and these kind of things. And then moving on to the next one. So this one is about the resilience and transparency in livestock supply chain. And there was a question about the chat if we are dealing with the animal transport data. And this is actually a case study that deals with this on how to better use the traces system and how this could be extended. So initially the idea is to look at the gaps in the EU traces traceability system and then these interviews and workshops have already been conducted. And we are trying to get access now to the data in Poland, and then to develop automation and optimization possibilities for data collection. There's quite a lot of data already in the system, and we feel it's underutilized. And then looking at the validation and also in pilot trials, and just optionally scaling to EU-wide. So obviously we are not, I mean, the Commission is handling the traces and not us, but we are trying to work together with the authorities and then to see that to make, let's say, realistic suggestions that could also be taken into practice. And the next one. The case study C is about robust AI methods for sensor-based animal tracking. So we know there is the new AI regulations in Europe, and this, while it doesn't touch that much of the livestock sector, we feel also like we should follow the good practices, which means we should have robust AI, and also it should be transparent to the user. We should understand what are the application areas. I mean, when it fails, when does it work? And then we are through these two cases of computer vision tracking on pigs and sensor-based grazing traceability of dairy cows, looking into what should be the validation, what kind of data can we publish, and how well can we reason in, let's say, if we train the model in a set of farms, how well can we then see how it performs in the other farms, and are we actually able to reason and give some kind of guarantees on the reliability of the models in different settings. Next one. So then we have a case study related to animal breeding, and here it is really to look at this, let's say, high throughput phenotyping and what new traits could we get through the use of digital technologies. And here there are different parts. So one, it is to identify what would be the new traits, looking into the scientific literature survey, and also in collaboration with the current cost actions and through with the stakeholders. And then looking at how those could be standardized and what would be the access to the information, because quite a lot of digital data that's not available for breeding purposes. And the other thing is that with the commercial sensing, they are not really standardized. And then also another possibility that even if you have access to the data, then when the company is updating the software or the firmware, you lose access to that exact data type, and you need to redevelop the things. And maybe this is, I think, animal breeding is one of the sector that is affected most by this. Let's say that the data is all changing. So that is topic here led by INRA and collaboration with EFAB. I'll go to the next one. So this is about how do we make LCA digital. So across Europe in livestock farms, at least let's say in the Finnish case and many other countries, there is the tendency to try to do LCA of all of the farms. And these are very often quite static and then rely a lot of, let's say, analog data or manually recorded data. So the aim here is to make the data collection digital and then to make this calculation more dynamic, which would then enable the farmers also to see the impact of their decision faster. The next one. So this deals with policy monitoring, and impact and administration, and the technology here is the data spaces. So we are trying to see how through the data space technology we could obtain more data from farms, such as milking robot data and feed production data, and use it at the national level for greenhouse gas inventories, on the other hand on LCA of the companies, and then improved monitoring of animal health in the governance side. And the aim here is to develop this software pilot on open source components on how to set up a data space with some sample data sets, and then also demonstrate the possibilities. And because there is now new projects related to forming of the common European data space, so we'll try to contribute in that sense as well in the new areas and collaborate with the emerging commercial operators in this space. If we go to the next one.
Yes, so
then we have a question here to you at this point, that which case study do you think will have the biggest impact? And so you will make now the impact assessment for us for initially, and then we see what we want to do in the project. We're not so easy to vote, we just went through them quickly, but you can also take this like as an indication of interest of if you want to vote for your favorite area.
Okay, let's hit half and then.
Yes. Okay.
Wow.
This animal health and welfare is popular and also breeding.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Let's go to the next maybe. So in a way, yeah, it's a question about the impacts you got your vote, and then we will also try to assess it through the case studies. So to recap, so the outcome will be kind of a digital solution, so in the forms of reports, software, concepts, and then we will do an impact analysis of each of the studies. So now you voted which you think have a biggest impact, and then we will try to quantify, and then after the case studies run for 3 years, and after that we have the assessment. So we are collecting the data on the environmental and economic performance, trying to look at like meaningful impact units for all of them, whether it's through the energy use of the digitalization of the impact of the case study or other things, and then how it could affect the economics in the digitalization. I mean, the relevant to the case, so it could be the farm, it could be the entire supply chain. And then we will do the assessment, and then hopefully we will be able to respond ourselves a little bit more scientifically on where we can have the biggest impact. Of course, we only see what becomes the adoption afterwards, but at least what is the potential on the activities that we do. And then I think the best way, we are open to having other participants and extending these. So now we are working with the first concept. We will present in June next year in a webinar the first results, and then we have kind of a second iteration where we'll be extending. So it's a good time to provide feedback, or if you want to follow, then to join the webinar and then see what we have done in the next 6 months, and also then it's possible to join these activities at that point.
Okay.
And we have a couple of more questions, I think.
Yes, Matti, and then I think your presentation is over. Let's go to the next
Yes.
slide, please, Ebba.
Okay, so if you would like to join the case studies and in some way in activities, you can vote here. Then you can send email to me or any one of us on in which ways you want to participate. And also, I mean, there's a possibility for this thematic expert panels and many ways to
Also
participate, and
inform
at least sign up on the website if you haven't yet for
we will
newsletters and stuff.
inform the participants after the webinar about all these how they can register and so on. So okay, we really have to speed up a little bit. We are
Okay, and then
behind.
maybe go to the last one. Okay, and this is also, I think, if we leave the poll open, we don't need to do this one, but we are also identifying, of course, we are doing the review on the ongoing European projects and other things that where we can collaborate and collect the information. So you can suggest the name of your project or some other project that you think would be the most relevant for us to look into. We already have agreements with let's say some of the projects on collaboration, and we've been in touch, but it's always good to, when we have new people, maybe there's something is coming up, might be quite sometimes important, even local initiatives that we are not aware of. So if you can put the name or the link or whatever in there.
Yes, okay. As I said, this poll will be open after the webinar as well, so you can already enter afterwards. We will send the link to you. And yes, let's move on.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, Matti. And now I give the floor to Thomas.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to give an overview of work package 6, which goes, which is focused on really how we translate the concepts into practice that we have already learned about in the project. So next slide, please. So we have quite a few partners involved in work package 6. In fact, most of the partnership in the project. Next slide, please. And the aim of this work package is really to elaborate, first of all, the bottlenecks with the concepts that we have discovered from the previous work packages, and then really work towards a kind of practical approach to enable stakeholders to realize the technology. And we will use the case studies as a way to learn about how we can map a better future in the use of this technology. Next slide, please. So the first part of the work package will be about the data sharing aspect. And here Foodscale Hub will organize a couple of workshops through the thematic expert panels. And the idea here is interesting to really discover what is the business opportunity, and then what kind of data sharing will be needed to enable that business opportunity. So that will start in the middle of June next year and go on for until December. So we might reach out for people to get involved. The next slide, please. So, based on that, of course, we will also want to refine the practices that we will look at. And part of this refinement process, of course, will be, first of all, looking to the available technologies, which currently are being collected in Work Package 2. So there we will try and discover a bit more about the accuracy, measurability, replicability of this kind of technology, the usefulness of the technology in practice, and the ability of it to answer the question that's been asked in terms of animal health, welfare, and productivity. And then we will define a set of best practices for the utilization of the technology. And then we will test out these best practices on the case studies, and of course go in a kind of iterative way so that we can refine these best practices. And that will go from the second half of next year into April 2026. Next slide, please. Okay, so very simple question. We will be refining these best practices. Would people like that we engage with the stakeholders while we're doing this refinement process? Okay, so yeah. Okay, it's obvious. Let's move on, Charlotte, to the next slide. Okay, so the next part is about the standardization and harmonization. Of course, standardization doesn't happen overnight, so it's a process that needs a bit of time and working out between various stakeholders. So next year we will, the beginning of 26, we will already start this process. ICAR will lead this process. And here we bring together the key stakeholders that will identify what are the actual needs. Somebody also mentioned in the chat about what will we look at, whether it will be data formats, interoperability, and so on. The idea is to look at all of these issues. But we will really focus on some of the important case studies within the project and see how we can really map what we have learned in this harmonization process into the case studies, and then get a better assessment of what's possible in the future. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we have these workshops that will be used as a basis for doing the harmonization. The question here is, do people have other ideas of what we could do? Maybe we should engage with different projects, or there are societies, conferences. Maybe people have other suggestions. But okay, people can think about this. Yeah, I see a few coming up. Okay, thank you. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so the very last thing that we'll do in this work package is try to learn from the other domains that are out there, and of course where standardization is important. So we have three different parts of this task. One is to look at really the technical part, which is, how is the data being dealt with during the development of the models? Is the data being stored centrally, or is it being distributed? Is there federated learning process being used? So we'll look at the different domains in the way they manage this aspect. Then we'll also consider the different technologies that are available in the other domains that could be repurposed for a livestock tracking purpose, and do a literature review on this. And then we'll look at the current AI methodologies that are available, some of which may not already be utilized in the livestock sector, but could be. And we'll bring all this information finally together to define some data concepts and solutions, potential solutions for the future. So that will be the end result of that task. Next slide, please. And yeah, of course, we will have output from this. We will target mainly a scientific audience, first of all, so we'll publish via literature reviews and studies. But how would the stakeholders like to see the findings here? Of course, we can also do blogs. Maybe there are other ways, also through social media, of course, but if people have other suggestions, it would be useful. On-farm presentations, interesting. Yeah, okay. So interesting suggestions, thank you. Right, I think that's the end of mine, Chala. The next is work package 7. Oh,
Yes.
no,
You
sorry.
have.
So okay, sorry. The final slide is how can the stakeholders benefit? Okay, so yeah, I showed the tasks there, but the key benefits are you can get involved in defining the business models that would enable data sharing. So I think that's really key for this to work in practice. Be part of the harmonization process, and that, yeah, this of course won't lead immediately to standardization, but will be on the path towards that. And then be part of learning and addressing what kind of technologies can be utilized to shape the future of livestock tracking. So they're the key benefits. Over to you, Petra.
Thank you, Petra.
Thank you
If
so
you
much.
could really be very quick,
Yeah.
we will have
Yes.
time for the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, I do my best. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Petra Tobe from Thünen Institute of Farm Economics. And on behalf of all involved partners, I'm happy to give you a short overview about work package 7, focusing on to synthesize results, assess impact, and develop policy recommendations. Here are also quite a lot of partners involved. 50 partners are involved. This work package is led by the Thünen Institute, and the co-lead has Luke. The overall aim of work package 7 is to provide more evidence on economic, social, and environmental impacts of digital and integrated database solutions and practices and their policy implications. Next slide. This is a more illustrative way to show the objectives of our work package. The developed digital and integrated database solutions and practices to enhance sustainability in the livestock sector will be analyzed from the environmental, social, and economic dimension in order to get a better understanding on the economic and social costs, on benefits and affordability, on markets and business potential, and to characterize also the environmental impacts in order to derive policy implications, taking into account legal, ethical, and regulatory aspects regarding a wider uptake in livestock tracking and tracing in public and private sectors. Next slide, please. The first part of this work package is looking at the compilation of data, approaches, solutions, results, experiences, and tools from case studies. So it means that the first step, we may mainly coordinate the data compilation from the case studies to compile data and summarize results from work package 5 case studies and work package 6 analysis as basis for the economic, environmental, and social impact analysis. So it aims at data sharing, harmonization, and standardization as basis for this economic, environmental, and social impact assessment and for the development of policy recommendations. Yes? Next slide. We would like to know and interact with you. Should we engage in this stage stakeholders during the data compilation process?
There are some notes.
There are some, yes, thank you very much.
Ebba, next slide, please.
Great, thank you. Here, in the second part, we are looking at the evaluation of potential economic impacts of a wider uptake of the project's approaches, solutions, including also administrative costs and affordability. In order to get a better understanding on the costs and benefits and to develop business model suggestions based on the innovative digital strategies developed, we, for instance, characterize qualitatively economic and societal barriers and gaps for adopting digital solutions, including affordability and feasibility. Then we evaluate the value-adding potential of innovative digital strategies along the value chain and evaluate readiness of the current market to accept those new technology-based applications. Next slide, please. And this work package will start in January next year, 27, sorry. Here we are looking at the evaluation of the potential environmental impacts of a wider uptake of the project approaches and solutions. In order to aggregate the life cycle inventory in terms of environmental impacts, we'll try to identify environmental impacts associated with solutions examined in each case study. And we are setting up a life cycle inventory with site-specific data from a selected case studies and conduct an extended life cycle impact assessment. This will take place from January 27 to February 28. Next slide, please. The next step, slide before. We will conduct a final validation of the data-driven concepts with citizens, consumers, and users of information and broader society. In the end, we would like to evaluate the readiness of the current consumer and retailer markets to accept new technology-based data-driven applications. First, we will conduct market testing for specific cases of the developed data-driven prototypes to assess better whether they meet the requirements. And then we will examine the connections of data-driven innovations with consumer markets, including brands, retailers, and consumer purchases. Next slide, please. In the end, we would like to develop an integrated policy approach, deriving recommendations for harmonized governance framework. Luca is coordinating this task. In the end, we would like to define policy and business conclusions of the project by synthesizing the results of the economic, environmental, and social assessment of and possible trade-offs, by carrying out a multi-criteria decision analysis to assess the innovative digital solutions from the perspective of economic, social, environmental sustainability, and to propose an integrated policy approach to tackle the challenges to the governance of data-driven livestock technologies. Next slide, please. we would like to ask you, what specific challenges or opportunities do you foresee in implementing the outcomes of this project?
Of course, during the webinar, the questions are not very long staying here, but rest assured that we will be sharing the links just after the webinar now. So you can still add your answers afterwards the webinar. Since trying to keep the webinar in a short slot, it's not always easy to be very interactive and wait for 80 people to respond all the time. So we apologize for that. But we will share these slides and the questions right after the webinar. So even if you can't finish writing now, you will have time afterwards. Maybe you can also share it with your network if you think they are relevant.
Thank you for your answers. How do you see the potential impact of this work on your area of expertise and operation? How it could help you in your domain? Oh, a lot of interaction. Thank you so much.
Great.
Again, yeah, what is the benefit for stakeholders and for ourselves? It's a huge benefit and also valuable to have the exchange with stakeholders involved. First, to play a role in evaluating the economic, environmental, and social impacts of the developed data-driven concepts. Then you can play a role in the development of an integrated policy approach, the policy recommendations, and to see how other ideas from sectors can shape data capture, transmission, management, sharing practices for livestock tracking. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, thank you very much to all the speakers, and thank you very much to all the audience for their patience, especially I think with the AHA Slides app, not all the windows are opened for all the participants. In fact, if there is an AHA Slides window open, you can review your answers going to the next tab on the window. So now I would like to give the floor to Anne-Marie, where I asked her personally because she's the founder of FUP. So I wanted her to share her ideas from because she has a background on data and she's working for Aviagen, but she's also working on sustainability, animal welfare. So Anne-Marie.
Thank you for asking me the question. So I am the founder of EFAP. I only will answer on my personal behalf. I'm not doing this on behalf of the company that I work for. So anything that I say is just personal. The basis of everything should be data, and I have great respect for what everything Jaco is doing. So kudos for that. And I know that when we need to get European money, we need to just come with very big outcomes. But getting public information into data systems is a process that really needs to just guarantee that the ones who are providing this information are safe and that it can be anonymous, so that it doesn't fire back on the people who provide the information. And I think the International Poultry Welfare Alliance and the US Roundtable for Sustainable Poultry and Eggs have been doing a great exercise there. So I think cooperating with them and getting that information, that would be very useful. The other thing is that, like we've seen with some of the welfare EFSA reports, which are not peer-reviewed, we have to be extremely careful that we see that we are not going to go for policy measures, even if we are using them. It is very important that the European farmers and the European companies are continue to be able to produce in Europe. And as a scientific community, it is very important that we are respectful to that and take steps, because this project is very much a research project, and it should stay like that. The danger is sometimes that small-scale research in Europe sometimes leads to far-reaching consequences, and then later, reality shows that would have been should not have been extrapolated. So we really need to be careful in being open about that and not putting on too big shoes. I hope that will, but I do see it is very, very important to have these European projects, and to also that the European Commission and the European community sees that this is a step on the road and it should continue. We do not need to get it implemented right away. Basic research and research cooperations between practice and research are very, very important as such. They are a basis. And I think that should be enough as such. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. You also had some questions. Did you get your answers along the...
Yes, well, the privacy thing, I think if I'm sure the US Roundtable and the International Poultry Welfare Alliance will be willing to share what they have been building. They have been, and the sustainability framework is a framework where all kind of companies in the United States can put sustainability information in, but it's done in such a way that they can compare themselves to the benchmark, but there's data guarantee, and that process is maybe interesting to see how they did that, and then take the best out of it, and of course not the things that you don't want.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. There were also some other questions. Some weren't answered. So I ask our speakers if they would like to answer. Valeria asked, related to standards and harmonized regulations, what exactly do you want to harmonize? The data transfer, format of the data, etc. How broadly are you approaching this issue, or are you focusing on a specific area? I think some part of this is already answered, but anybody willing to?
Well, I think this question came before the work package 6, where I explained everything. So I think, to just summarize, we will cover the key aspects of harmonization, for instance, data format, exchange of data, interoperability, and so on. And also with respect to the actual monitoring protocols and, for instance, thresholds behind why we detect a certain problem with a device. So these are all aspects that we're going to consider in the harmonization and standardization. And the particular aspect, I guess, the particular focus will depend on the case study that we select. So that still has to be done. Yeah, but that will be beginning next year.
Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, and maybe I can add that, of course, harmonizing or standardizing something can be a really complicated and comprehensive process, depending on the level of details that you do. So mostly we are approaching these questions through the case studies, because then we have kind of a empirical framework where we can also address some specific questions. But then, especially when we are looking at data sharing, then what is also important is that how we create an environment where different stakeholders have the interest and motivations to share the data. So it's not only technical question, but it's also about that what drives the data sharing in general.
Georgios, do you have a question?
No, not really.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there are any other questions from the audience, just raise your hand and please ask. Otherwise, we can also go through like some of the questions asked here. Especially there was an interest from Tatiana. Environmental assessment tools are being elaborated in other Horizon projects. I think maybe they already mentioned it in the poll questions. Sustainability at the end of 2025 with interesting benchmarking for swine poultry farms. So that could be interesting, I think, for Digi4Live as well. And Julie suggested that if they provide data for the case studies, if there are any agreements to guarantee the use of data, maybe it would be good to answer it for all the other participants to learn about this, because this data sharing is quite
Yeah,
important
so
part.
yeah, I already answered in the chat, but yeah, so of course, if you share data, then we make an agreement with you on what are the rights and access to the data, and we are already making it for some of the case studies. And then there was also a question related to this, if the datasets will be open. So most of the datasets will not be open because we are not working with our own data in the case studies. We are working with the data of the stakeholders. So only if the owner of the data wishes to make it open, then we can share it. Of course, the data that we generate, like the inventories and maybe some sample data from the case studies that is generated by the participants, can be made available openly. But the datasets like traces or the datasets coming from the industry, they are not something that will be shared.
Thank
But
you.
I mean, you can always, as suggested by Thomas, you can ask to collaborate in a case study, and then of course there can be additional agreements if we can extend the work, but then that is kind of conditional on the permission from everybody who owns the data, basically.
Okay, there's another question from Julie before Stefano. Concerning the new welfare database, are you open to cattle too, or just poultry? Jarkko?
Yeah, well, the case study concerning welfare is mostly focusing on poultry, but then actually we have also welfare aspects in other case studies. So yes, of course, this is something that we can explore.
Stefano?
Yes, good morning. And I'm saying I'm a little bit, let's say, interested in the concept of circulation of data, not so much on data sharing, data interoperability, etc., but of how you use the data, because at the end you are connecting different, say, objectives, and how do they circulate from one objective to another objective? So the concept of circulation in the context of data space. Thank you.
Maybe I can answer from the point of view of the our case study, because it's Luke is leading the one that is mainly dealing with data spaces. So it is mainly to look at the multi-use of data. And of course, I mean, we are working with some data sets in practice and actually implementing the software, and then the others are more conceptual. Otherwise, it would be an undertaking for the industry. But basically, the idea is that, of course, the data provider should connect to the data space only once, and then you can give access permissions to the different use cases. So I don't know if that's like data circularity as such, but it is sharing of the same data sets for different purposes with different granularity, and it's something we are not addressing in the case study. But I guess going forward in the data space is also like the transactions. I mean, the pricing of the use of the data could go through the data space, and this is something that's now worked on in the European Gaia X standardization on how these things will happen. So we are following those standardization and trying to follow the best practices. So I think this is a very much developing area. So that now we have some data space technology, and then 3 years it will be quite different, and then we see what is coming. But yeah, now we access the multi-use, and of course this includes how you technically share only certain data points for one use case and then a broader data set for other use case through the data space. So maybe that answers a little bit to the question.
Thank you, Matti. Stefano?
Yes, I mean, yes, I do agree, but you see, at the end, this concept of circulation should have a benefit. I mean, we are using the data as a means where circulated provide innovation, provide commercialization, provide benefit. This benefit should go back to the, let's say, to the starting point. That's why I see the circulation of data as the main point of developing economy. If you think in terms of agriculture, for example, and you have one sector, is only livestock, I would like to see the farmer to get benefit through sharing data. Let's circulate the data, let's commercialize the data, and then let's get the benefit. In other words, we are working towards a community benefit, community sharing benefit. This is my interest. I mean, this is my interest anyhow.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So we will partially address that in the case study. Of course, there are very large European projects that focus only on the data spaces. And we are also a partner on some of the upcoming ones, but I think we'll more address this economic topic. But we are now, when we do the assessment of our case study, also looking at on who gets the benefit and how that could be shared in the data chain. Because of course, there is some additional cost for all of the participants in joining the data space. So clearly there needs to be some added benefit. And I think we would actually need to have new money flowing into the system. Otherwise, it is just an extra cost. So that is clear. Yeah, thanks. A very good comment.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we will. Anne-Marie?
Yes, I have one. I can understand comparing data, how that could benefit people. But we see in the United States that there is data being shared across the industries in an anonymous way, at least in the poultry sector. But if you are below the average and you're a manager in a certain company, you will get fired. That is how it works in the practice. So it is very important to look at the benefits, but it's also very important to be realistic how it could work. And it is good if it can be used to improve, but if it's used to punish, then we need to think a little bit about that as well, not be too naive about it. Yeah.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Any comments? Otherwise, we move to wrap up and closing by Jarkko with some last questions.
Yes. So yeah, so we have a few questions that we would like you to have a look at before finishing the webinar. So the first one is that what technology do you think that will be the most transformative for livestock tracking? And again, please use the website to enter your responses. So we have cell phones, wearables, drones, remote sensing, different kinds of tools, also understanding the data I guess sensors, central data repository, GPS, internet.
Stable internet, yeah.
Yeah, stable internet. RFID antennas, app-based application. So there are quite many technologies. I think there are some connecting points between many of these.
Yes, but sensors remain the central.
Yeah, exactly. So they're kind of smart farming solutions.
And artificial intelligence.
Yeah, on one hand, to collect data, and then on the other hand, we need to be able to analyze and synthesize the data. Perhaps we can move to the next one. So the second question is that, in your opinion, what are the areas of livestock tracking that you think would benefit most from the possible policy changes? And of course, this can concern different types of policies. For instance, those relating to data itself, or the use of data, or something else.
The whole industry,
I
think.
Quality assurance, slaughtering, transportation, transparency. Now there are quite a lot of different items coming up.
I think that's supposed to be traceability, right?
I think so.
Slaughtering, transparency.
Data uniformity. Obviously, these benefits will also depend on the type of data and type of solutions. There's also a comment that policy change is not an aim. And actually, usually policies should be designed so that they are for some specific, they have certain specific purpose usually that they are trying to promote.
But welfare is again the,
yeah.
I think.
Robustness is okay,
yes.
perhaps we can move on.
I think we have one last question, right? Yes, this is the
I
last
think
one.
This is the last one. And the last question is that what key outcomes would you like from public-private collaboration in livestock tracking? So we have trust and mutual respect, comparable data, standardization, adoption and integration of farming systems, better animal health and welfare, objective and reliable data, again standardization, consolidated approaches.
Efficiency. I think that's also quite important.
Ease of clarity and ease of accessibility. Standardization. So different types of things. Standardization appears quite many times. Also, I think this trust and mutual respect is important because that is one of the things that is needed in order to create a relationship which allows data sharing and multi-use of data. Okay, well, I think it's time to close the webinar. I would like to thank you very much for attending this webinar. And as a last reminder, please join our stakeholder list and then also follow us on social media. So we have different social media channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and so on. So please follow us. And then if you like to hear more about the project, please go to our website and join our stakeholder list. And also consider joining this thematic expert panel groups. So thank you for attending. And Charla, do you want to say the final word?
No, yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, well, many thanks for attending. And I hope that we will see you in seminars and in webinars and events that we will be organizing on behalf of Digi4Live later on. So I wish you a nice continuation of the day.